Hi, Brendan.
Hi, how you going?
And how are you?
Not too bad.
Okay, well, guys, we're live.
All right, beautiful.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Writers Festival. This panel is called Starting a Literary Journal. I would like to start by acknowledging the first Australians as the traditional custodians of the continent, whose cultures are among the oldest living cultures in human history. I pay respect to the elders of the community and extend my recognition to their descendants who may be present. My name is Eloise Fakeney and I'm the host of this panel and the co-senior editor of Backstory and Other Terrain journals. And I might start by introducing the panel. We have some remarkable literary journal editors with us to share their wisdom. First, we have Brendan Polsky. He is a founding member of Snap Journal, which is a literary journal established by a group of writers for writers with disability, mental illness, or who are deaf. He's completing a MA in writing and he's written for PBS FM and Arts Act Victoria. Welcome, Brendan. Do you want to give us a wave?
Hello, I'm giving you a wave. Hello. Welcome.
Next up, we have Wendy Dunn. Wendy's the co-senior editor of Backstory and Other Terrain, two literary journals run by Swinburne University. She's the author of 3 historical fiction novels and she holds a PhD in writing. Welcome, Wendy.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
And finally, we have Aaron Mannion. He's the Deputy Chair of the Small Press Network and co-convener of the Independent Publishing Conference's Academic Day. Currently, he's an Associate Publisher at Vignette Press and a fiction editor at Antic. His work has been published in Wet Ink, The Sleeper's Almanac, Ireland, and elsewhere. Welcome, Aaron.
Welcome, thank you.
Before we get started, all the events in the Digital Writers Festival are interactive and viewers are encouraged to participate via the DWF16 hashtag on Twitter, and we'll allow some question time at the end if you have any questions for our panelists. And probably to start with, it'll be just great to hear a little bit about our panelists and their experience working with literary journals. So Aaron, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Well, at the moment, I'm a fiction and craft editor at Antic. So that's our publishers are Julian Novitz, Swinburne lecturer, and Sabita Nasawaran. And it's online only at the moment, although we do hope to do some print in the future. In the past, what have I done? Well, with Vignette, we've done Geek MOOC, and hopefully we'll do something more in the future. We've also kind of it's almost like starting a journal, but when I was in the Postgraduate Student Society, we relaunched Muse and then some other kind of journals that I've been involved in around about. So that's kind of my background, but also I suppose the small press network gives me, just from our members, kind of seeing all the fantastic, exciting things they do. So I get to kind of see a little bit of what's happening out there.
That's wonderful. Wendy, do you want to go next?
All right, yeah. All my journal experience has really come out of my teaching career, and that has stretched for, I think I started about 30 years ago now, God. And I started work at the Royal Children's, and working with very ill children, you had to find ways to engage them. And I spoke to them about what they'd like to do as writers, and most of them put forward that they'd like to start a ward newsletter. So that was my starting point. After that, I've been working in various online platforms, including 5 years on a website called Sweet 101 that had 900 writers when I started writing there. And at the end of my first year, I was looking after 60 of those writers, looking over their work, mentoring them, making certain everything went smoothly for them. And so that was actually a very valuable time when I learnt about how mentoring was so important for writers and to be mentored and to be a mentor. And also when I went back to primary teaching in 2004, I started a school magazine, and that I worked on until last year when I resigned from that work. And now, of course, I'm doing Backstory and Other Terrain with you, Eloise, so yes.
And Brendan?
Well, the background, a little bit of background for me, apart from doing the Master of Arts in Writing, I have previously worked at the University of Melbourne, and I resigned that position a few years ago because I wanted to do some writing, and have recently become involved with snapjournal.com.au as a sort of founding editor, I guess, along with 2 other people who wanted to get involved. So, yeah.
That's great. I thought I'd start off with a quote that I found in an article for The New Yorker, which was entitled "The Persistence of Lit Mags." And Stephen Burt, he opened with this passage: "Why on earth would you start a literary magazine? You won't get rich or even very famous. You'll have to keep your day job unless you're a student or so rich you don't need a day job. You and the people you hire, if you can afford to pay them, will use their time and energy on page layouts, bookkeeping, distribution, website coding, and digital upkeep. You'll lose time that you could devote to your own essays or fiction or poems. And once your journal exists, it will wing its way into a world already full of journals, like a paper airplane into a recycling bin or onto a web already crowded with literary sites. Why would you do such a thing?" Now, I don't know if you guys have ever asked yourselves any of these questions, but I thought we might just start with the question: what should people know before they undertake starting a literary journal?
It's a lot of work, a lot of commitment, a lot of late night, disrupted days, good reasons to avoid housework, which is wonderful. I don't mind that. There is stress, but look, for me, it's a very, very worthwhile thing to do, because I believe that writers learn best with other writers, and in the drafting stage, writing is often a collaborative exercise, and so being part of a journal gives me the opportunity to help writers hone their craft as writers. So, yeah, that's my answer.
What about the others?
Well, I think most of what Wendy said is true in terms of getting started and all that sort of stuff, and all the huffing and puffing that you have to do, and all the pushing, and that's even before you even get anything out on the web or wherever you want to put it. You've got to put a lot of work into it. You've got to want to do it, and you've got to find people who are like-minded, I think, to push it through, because that's absolutely essential. If you don't have other people who are as committed as you to actually even get the thing off the ground, it's never going to get anywhere. You have to believe that what you want to happen is going to happen in whatever shape or form. And it mightn't entirely turn out the way you wanted it to in the first place, but at least it's there. It exists. So
yes,
you've got to believe in it. Yes,
I agree with that, Brendan.
I think I'd just go to the why, and it's because it's really exciting. I mean, it's a way to actually get involved with these amazing things like books and stories that kind of, I don't know, I just remember the moment. It wasn't when I wanted to be a writer so much as when I thought, I want to be in on this. This is a game I want to be part of. It's amazing. I mean, when you kind of, just really simple things. You read a poem that you really love, or a story that you just think is really fun, and you just decide, hey, I mean, this is where it's at. I need to be part of this, and I still get that kind of kick. I stick my hand up for far too much stuff, and it's my writing suffers. I write a lot less than I would if I didn't stick my hand up for this. But it's like being that kid in the candy store. Someone's offering you candy. You say yes, I will be sick later on, and yeah, I'll put on 40 kilos because of it, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's candy. And I mean, yeah, this is literary journals. These are stories, and whatever you're doing, it's just fun.
Oh dear, what happened? What happened then?
You right?
I don't know.
I'm good on my end. You guys good?
I'm good. I'm here.
All right. It went straight. Yes.
These things happen. Yeah. So in practical terms, starting a literary journal obviously is a large undertaking, as we've discussed. I wanted to talk about, like, how did each of you go about the practicalities, and what sort of challenges should aspiring literary journal founders be prepared for?
I'll kick in. I think the best thing you can do is have, like I did, two fabulous publishers and editors to do most of this stuff for me, in this case, for Antic anyway. I mean, there's just an awful lot to do. Setting up a good website, building a certain kind of social media following just so that it gets out there. I mean, publishing has changed from something where the major hurdle in the past was just production. Like, to get a book was difficult to do this. But now that's really fairly trivial. We can all do that, but can we actually find people to read it and people to engage with us? And that takes a lot of time and effort. I mean, just don't underestimate how much time you need to just build up people who are available to see what you're saying. It's like a town square, and you need to kind of create that. And sometimes it feels like you're putting in block by block. You're kind of paving it all. It can feel quite slow, but that takes a lot of time, a lot more. It's not the fun bit, but it possibly takes as much time, if not more, than the actual production. Otherwise, you end up producing perhaps something really fantastic and exciting, but yeah, if a tree falls in the woods, does anybody hear it? It's the same kind of things with literary journals. If you don't have anyone to actually hear it and see it.
Yeah, that's very true. The engagement of the audience, I think, is key. You mentioned social media there. Do we want to talk about how important social media is for literary journals?
It's part of the landscape of every writer nowadays, and we can't ignore it. And I think we've been very fortunate that we've been able to make use of Facebook and Twitter, and we're looking at other social media platforms that we can actually promote other terrain and backstory on. It's definitely with Facebook, I find that we are building up an audience with our, we've got group, it's not called groups, is it? It's called something else. We've got pages. Yes, pages. We've got pages, and we're building up an audience through our pages. And surprisingly too, we seem to be stumbled on by a global audience as well, because we are getting people submitting work to us from India and Pakistan and other places, America and England. So I'm not quite sure how that happens, but it's lovely to know that they are seeing us and reading us and appreciating what we're writing. So that's exciting.
It is very exciting. Brendan, do you? I know that Snap Journal is on Twitter. Do they have a Facebook as well?
Yes, we've got a Facebook page. One of the other things I would say is, in terms of starting up the journal or a journal or any kind of literary endeavour, you need to have, I think, and I said it before, people who are committed, other people within the group who are committed. Because one of the pitfalls we have found is that although originally we had, say, 4 people who were really involved with it, one of them decided for lots of other reasons that they wanted to drop out, and then we got somebody else in, and again, for other reasons, they wanted to drop out, and they were the ones who were helping us with the social media. So we're sort of, that's one of the struggles. You've got to get people who want to be there all the time. And obviously the other thing is to find someone to be able to replace them. And that's not always as easy as you might think. So if you want to have those skills available, as in 3 of us are not very skilled in Twitter and not very skilled in Facebook. So we needed somebody who was sort of on top of all that. So it was kind of a bit of a handicap at times when we couldn't get that, because your Facebook page would just be redundant or just sit there and do nothing. So, we kind of needed some help in that area. So, yeah, you need to have everybody on board all the time.
Yeah,
you also need to trust them, I think. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
You can let people just kind of do their thing, which, yeah, I find kind of the more committee-ish it is, it takes so much more time. It's not necessarily that it's bad, but whereas if you have someone who they have a role and you trust them for it and then they can go for it, it does speed things up. So that kind of, strong sense of trust between the people is, I think, really important for things working smoothly and quickly.
And also that they will, you know, the concomitant with that is obviously that they will take ownership of it and say, yes, I will do this, get this done, fix up the Facebook page or whatever it is that they've put their hand up to do, that it actually gets done.
That's a very important key to a successful journal, is that the people who are involved all feel that ownership of that particular journal, because that makes everyone very passionate and working towards seeing it published and celebrating when it is published, which is very exciting, when all our hard hours, long hours of work, and we can see it in front of us. I think with our journals, because they're part of Swinburne, we have students, and that can be wonderful, and it can be sometimes difficult, because the fact is that we can only provide a time every fortnight to get together. Those times often don't commute with the other people who want to be involved with the journal, so we get people dropping out because they just can't make it to the meetings, which is really sad. We actually have had, we've got a secret Facebook page, and that has worked really well, and we've got probably about 12 core people who have stayed with us through the year now, which is really good. We had about 20 at the beginning of the year. We've got 12 now, so I think that's pretty good.
And those sub-editors have really stepped up. And, you know, I think they've grown a lot through the process.
Oh, they have.
It's been amazing to see.
And it's exciting to see that. And we've been, you know, just in awe of what they've achieved and all the things that they've done. And, yeah, it's great, isn't it? It's very exciting.
So I don't know if I should bring up money, but the question of funding is obviously a huge one.
But we're very lucky, aren't we? Because I don't think we can really say very much to this question, because we've got a very wonderful patron in Swinburne who supports us, Carolyn, our wonderful Carolyn Beasley. She is 100% behind us, and so she waves her magic wand when we suggest things, and things happen for us. The only thing I could probably say to this is that I know that there have been stories where people have launched journals through crowdfunding. I've heard that quite a lot, and I do know a few people who've done that. So
I was going to say, you know, what are the options for journals that maybe don't have access to institutional support? I wonder if you've got something to add to that, Aaron, with your experience.
Well, I think, as we just mentioned, that crowdfunding is a way to do it. There are other grants out there, but grants, you need a lot of knowledge to kind of put in successful grants these days. And if that's you, that's great. Then you can kind of apply for the City of Melbourne. We're looking at Arts Victoria, those kind of things. And that's fine, but that does require quite a lot of knowledge beforehand, or a friend who has knowledge, or so there's other ways around it, but you can look at those. You can also fund it yourself. These things are not necessarily that expensive if you're prepared to really hustle, to ask every favor you can pull from your friends who have skills, design skills, these kind of things. These are self-fundable, and especially if you're a good events organizer, I think can be a huge bit. If you can kind of run a big successful launch, charge them at the door, you can maybe recoup some of the costs that came out. I mean, as that quote said at the beginning, you will not be making money. Just try not to lose too much money. I think maybe might be the aim. But it is fundable. It is doable.
We're not doing it for the money, are we? I mean, I know we are.
Certainly not.
We're not doing it for the money either.
If we are, then we're really stupid.
Absolutely. You wouldn't do it for the money.
No. But I do think, you know, journals, like ours. They are so necessary for writers in their career. We need to provide platforms for emerging writers to add their voices and to be able to submit work to and everything. So I don't really mind that there's so many journals out there, because, you know, that gives writers so many places to send their work to and have a chance of seeing their work published online or in a anthology. So, you know, it's exciting when our work is published, and all writers deserve to see their work published at least once. hopefully more than that in their lifetime.
Actually, on that sort of note, Wendy, Overland are doing kind of Overland, for those who don't know, is like one of the most well-known Australian literary journals, and a fabulous publication. And they're sort of doing a subscription drive, but they also are doing a subscription drive for other journals that they are sort of friendly with. And I thought that was really great. They talked about a culture of writing, ideas, criticism, debate, and their sort of stance on it is the more literary journals, the better.
Yes.
And do you obviously, Wendy, you agree? What about you, Brendan?
Yes, well, I agree with that stance, certainly. Clearly from, you know, what I agree with what Wendy said, the more that are out there, the more opportunity there is for writers to get their works published. Now, you know, whether they get paid for it or otherwise, it's still an opportunity. The more of those kind of journals that are out there. So yes, I support that. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do. I mean, the other thing with literary journals is they die quite a lot. We are like the little turtles kind of on the beach. There's 100 little baby turtles. And there's only going to be like, yeah, X number survive, and so and that's not a terrible thing. It is very sad when we've come to know and love kind of, leaves us, but in some ways that's, yeah, it's good that there's new and exciting ideas, and maybe you start a journal and it's fun for a while, and then your passion goes elsewhere. I think just start them if you want to start them. I mean, they don't all have to survive forever. That's really fine. Obviously, I mean, it is really sad when established journals that have really built something up.
Go belly up.
Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily in itself terrible that there is a kind of turnover, as long as people do keep having the courage and the, I'm not sure what the word is, idiocy, I'm like hardly thinking, to keep starting them. I mean, that's what we need. We need us to keep being naive enough to think, yeah, I can fit this in between all the other things I do. Yeah. I think it's important.
Because, well, yes, again, with that, one of the things that I went to a workshop on starting a journal before we actually got started on doing what we were trying to do. And one of the questions, the most salient question that was asked was, have you considered how long this journal, whatever it is you want to put out there, whether it's a journal through the web or a printed piece, how long that might want to last? And I think that's a worthwhile thing to think about, to recognise that it may not go forever, and a lot of them, so many of them do not.
Well, I live in hope to see The Terrain and Black Story live for a long, long time, because I do, well, because they are part of Swinburne's writing department, and because I was a master's student, I did my PhD at Swinburne too. During the time when I was doing my master's, I was really frustrated that there didn't seem to be many platforms for me to actually submit work at my university, and because I write history, I was really wanting to have a publication that offered me a place where I could submit my writing history to. So Backstory was a dream of mine when I was doing my master's, and to see it happen now. And while we have a unit offered at Swinburne called Writing History, that means that we're going to always have people wanting to submit work to us. Another Terrain is a very exciting journal. It's experimental. It talks to the modern society that's around us. So I live in hope to see it there for many, many years. Not that I'm going to be the editor of it.
We're going to be the editor still until at some point. But
we'll pass the torch. We'll pass the torch to Sarah. What does Sarah say? Hi, Sarah.
Sarah is a wonderful sub-editor who has done an amazing year's work for us. So shout out to Sarah.
I think, can I just go back to Brendan's point? I think it's a really good one about thinking that, I mean, so many great journals do eventually end. I mean, let's hope they get a good, strong 30, 40-year run, but they will end. But yeah, thinking about the legacy is, I think, quite important. And it's also maybe important, I think all of us are digital online journals, and that works a little bit differently. In some ways, I think print is a great way. It survives. It's still on your shelf. It's on everyone else's shelves in the future. And in some ways, it does better with a kind of built-in time frame on it. And that's kind of an interesting thing to think about, I think. I mean, I also kind of think, I think when you start off a journal, you think online only. That's the easiest. And in some senses it is. I mean, yeah, there's hassles of print and organization and that kind of things. But in some ways, I think, yeah, to do 2 or 3 issues of a print journal is in some ways easier for the kind of exposure and the effect that you get out of it than the long, slow process of building up an online journal that in some senses its reality and its existence is only in the people around it, in the way that the book is there. You can forget about the book for 10 years and look at the book, it's there again. An online journal isn't quite like that. It kind of needs a sense of interest and conversation around it.
A kind of structure that suggests that it's sort of moving on rather than just being a static kind of being in a sense. Yeah.
We're very fortunate that this year that we, when we were talking about the journals at the beginning of the year, and Carolyn let it out of the bag that she was hoping for us. Well, she didn't hope. She said we were definitely going to have a publish-on-demand version at the end of the year. So we're going to have 2 publish-on-demand versions of our content of both. Oh, it is awesome. And so we're very excited about that. So everybody who has submitted work and been published on our online versions will be getting a copy of that. So, and so we're very excited about that.
And that's exceptionally different as well, sort of moving this online journal into a print reality. It's been a big learning experience. And I don't know whether a lot of online journals do sort of move into print, but obviously there's benefits and challenges of each. But I think what Aaron is saying about the print kind of living forever, and I think there's something beautiful about being able to give writers something they can hold in their hands, and say, or give it to their mum and say, I'm published in this.
Yes, exactly. And readers seem to be more forgiving of errors online than what they are on a published book. If they find errors in a published book, they're more likely to say this is an inferior product, and that was one of the reasons why when you said to me, why are we printing out our publish on demand versions? And that's because you miss things. You actually, when you're reading online, there's things like commas or just little mistakes, or maybe even a double space when you shouldn't have a double space, and you see it so much better as hard copy. So it's an interesting process to be editing something for a book rather than online.
It is, yeah.
Just to go on to the nitty-gritty bits, do you mind if I plug Small Press Network? We have our conference this week.
Yes,
just on Saturday, if you are thinking of starting a journal. Sorry?
I'm coming on Thursday, yes.
Oh, yeah, for the academic day.
Yes.
On Saturday is what we call our Foundations Day, which is really for people who are at the very beginning of a publishing journey. So there's a lot of information about just the kind of nitty-gritty about how do you create a book, how do you get a distributor, all of those kind of things. The other one to mention might be for students, which is our student day on Wednesday, which will be Wednesday afternoon. And that's free for any of the sponsoring unis, which is Swinburne, University of Melbourne, and RMIT. And it's quite reasonable for other students if they're out there. I think it's about $30 with a student discount. But they're great places to kind of get this information of the kind of practicalities of how you do it.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I probably also just mention
I'm going to be going.
if people need how you actually do it. I mean, we're thinking of WordPress. Are you guys all WordPress based?
We are, yeah.
Yes.
We are.
I mean, that's mostly what people are using. If you're looking to do print on demand, which is probably what you're going to do if you're starting a small journal, you're probably looking at Lightning Source in Australia, or probably who's going to do it. If you want to kind of go an easy formatting route, I'd really recommend looking at Pressbooks, which is a site that basically is a hugely complicated WordPress plugin that translates it into a print-ready PDF. That's if you haven't got InDesign skills.
Yeah.
Right.
That sounds good. But with regards to tools that we all use for our journals, we've actually, like I mentioned, we're using Facebook for our group so that we can come together and work out who's doing what work and everything like that. So that's really effective. We are also using Google Documents so that we have our running sheet up that we can doctor. We've now introduced Submittable. Is that how you say it, Eloise? Submittable. And so that's going to be so that means that when people submit their work to us, it's a more effective way of us seeing who has submitted work, and we can get back to them. What was the other ones that we had on the table?
Well,
any other
there's also, I mean, in terms of literary journals, I mean, for writers and stuff, there's also things like New Pages, and where they can keep track of, or Duotrope, where they can keep track of their submissions. You know, it might be good to talk a little bit about how we go from getting a piece to deciding to publish it, and you know, how that works for each of our journals. I don't know, Brendan, do you want to talk a bit about how that works with Snap Journal?
In terms of getting pieces submitted to
What's
us.
the process?
Well, the process that we evolved was because we set ourselves up as a publishing website journal that would publish work by writers with a disability, or who were deaf, or who were experiencing some sort of mental illness. We had to look at several networks such as Arts Access and Writers Victoria to kind of get the word out there, to get people to submit at least for our first edition. So we basically sent the invitations out, and we also had contacts among the 3 or 4 people who were working with us. So we put the word out and said, please send them to us at this particular address, and we'll have a look at your creative non-fiction, your poetry, or your short story, and we'll have a look at that and decide whether or not we were going to publish it. Now, we'd set ourselves a limit and said we would publish 10 lots of short story, 10 lots of creative non-fiction, and 10 lots of poetry, so that we could whittle down I think it was around 146 submissions that we had by a certain date, and then set to the editing process, basically, and then look to basically putting them up on WordPress.
That's great, thank you.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Go through
Aaron?
Antic, or?
Aaron?
Yep. Well, it depends. I mean, we have different editors for different things. There's a non-fiction editor, there's a reviews editor, there's fiction and the craft pieces, and then a poetry editor as well. So, I mean, basically, we have a submissions email address. Things are sent in, but we will also go and commission or ask or kind of inveigle people we want to kind of send us something, and ask those as well. And I think good editors hustle. They kind of, they're out trying to get a piece that maybe is too good for your journal, that should be in something fancier. I mean, you need to kind of get out there and try and get the best things you can get. And I mean, it's obviously difficult then you yeah, I mean, we read through everything that gets sent in. Sometimes it's awesome, it just doesn't suit our journal, or else it's awesome, but it's very like something else that we've already accepted. I mean, there's all those kind of things, just to recognize if you're not getting accepted. It isn't always about you. It's about the reader, and I think any journal that's going to be successful is about the reader. And so it's about what we need for them, which might not have anything to do with you. Your writing could be fantastic, but yeah, we've done a story on a similar theme last issue. So we're like, oh, we don't want to do that again. Or someone who's been accepted, as I said, is quite similar, or those kind of things. But then we'll read through them. If we accept it, then we'll edit it. I like to do what I think how interventionist editing is in Australia varies quite a lot. For fiction, generally, it's not very interventionist. I do think there's a benefit for being a little bit more interventionist, because it allows you to take a broader range of material that maybe isn't quite as finished, but has promise and excitement, or whatever else, whatever you're looking for. But that might need a little bit more work. But that does vary how people feel they should do that. Some people kind of err towards something that's more finished, and other editors are prepared to kind of muck in there and kind of
I was going to ask
aim to work on it more.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question about whether you, as editors, work with writers on their pieces. Say, for example, you might get something that isn't quite right, but you're really enjoying the engagement of the ideas, and you want to work with that person to develop. Does that happen often? Or is that sort of more of a one-off because we don't really have all that much time on our hands?
We do that with our students. We want to nurture. If students are submitting work to us and we see that there's a possibility of us mentoring that student so that we can get that work to a stage where it could be published, we will do that. But as for pieces that come from outside, because of our time commitment, we have opted not to do that as much. We had a piece that was submitted to us from America that we decided that it was just too hard for us to work. It was too much work involved with us having to, we could see it lasting, being in our box for about 3 months of negotiating with the writer for changes and stuff. It was a good story, but it wasn't a very good story. And we really want to see very good stories that we can help push even to being excellent stories being published in both our journals. So yeah, when we first started the journals, the first issue, Eloise and I were the main editors of it, but with the second issue, we asked our students to put up their hands to say who would like to be an editor of the fiction, non-fiction, poetry, and all those things. So we've now broken it up into sub-editors, which so we will. Eloise and I will glance at the works, and the first pages look all right. We'll then handball them to the right editor under our sub-editors. And it seems to be working pretty well, don't you reckon?
It goes all right.
I don't think I've actually had to do that much yet either, but I do like to keep the possibility open. I'm very open to the possibility of taking a story or a piece, whatever kind of piece that I think, at least for me to want to publish it, does it, and to work on that. I think, so far actually I've been incredibly lucky to get fantastic pieces, and so basically it's a bit of a copy edit and I'm done. But I mean, I like to keep that open. I think there's even a kind of access issue here in terms of the kind of refinement that you get in a story that feels really finished is something that possibly comes from years of studying creative writing and things, and I would like to keep it open to people who maybe haven't gone through that kind of refinement process. I mean, I think so far, actually, I've had fantastic pieces that are really clean, great stories. But I do think, for me, it's important to keep that open. But we also don't publish that. We publish 2 of each thing in our inaugural issue, and I think that's the plan to keep going forward. Or 2, sometimes it's occasionally a little bit more. But so we're not doing huge numbers. So I say that. I can do that because I'm doing 2 pieces, not 10. Or 20. Yeah.
I can't remember our numbers. I think we had about maybe 7 short stories, maybe 10 short stories per issue.
Mm-hmm.
And quite a lot of poetry, which is wonderful. So we're very fortunate that we have a wonderful poet editor, so that helps a lot. But our publish on demand versions are both over 30,000 words each, so we've published quite a lot this year.
Yeah.
We have.
Yes.
We actually have a question from Twitter, if you guys don't mind weighing in.
Right.
Excited here.
Yenrong Wong wants to know, does anyone on the panel have other suggestions for print-on-demand publishers in Australia?
So not Lightning Source?
I guess anything but Lightning Source.
Let's see. Not that I know of people using. That doesn't mean that they're not. I mean, yeah. Blurb is another print-on-demand person, but I'm not even sure if their back-end might be Lightning Source, but they provide something else. That could be completely wrong. Sorry, Blurb, if I'm messing that up for you. But there are other... Blurb I've heard good things about. People who are happy, really happy using them. But also Lightning Source I hear good things about. So
wasn't there I heard that Queensland University were doing print on demand, or was that it might be worthwhile contacting the universities to find out if any of them are doing it and seeing what sort of price. Yeah, because I think I did hear that Queensland University was doing print on demand within their institution.
But does that mean that they're using print on demand, or that they're actually supplying it?
Well, I thought they're actually doing it in the actual institution that set it up, but that was a couple years ago, and I haven't heard anything. It's just something that I read and thought, oh, that's interesting. But like you, the only one I really know about is Lightning Source, and Lightning Source do a brilliant job. They are very professional, and they have an Australian supplier. So, yeah, not quite sure the price per unit. But we'll probably find out.
But it's fairly competitive. It's not too far. I mean, obviously, it's not going to compete to offset printing with a 4,000 run, but then you're not holding any stock. It's very doable. I think I was looking at one recently. So a B5 book, 200 pages, might be around $5-6. I mean, this is just very guesstimate, but I mean, that's something that you could sell on in a way that's kind of viable, even going through a bookshop with their percentage.
Yeah.
So it is doable. Yeah, unlike, so if we're looking 10, 50 years ago when print on demand first started working, then it would have been like $20 or something a book, and yet really you can't cover costs on that kind of level.
Exactly right.
Should we go back and talk about the thing that got us all into literary journals, which is the candy that Aaron was talking about at the start,
being published.
The stories.
Yes,
and what kind of stories are you all looking for any writers that might be looking to get published in any of the journals?
Well, clearly, backstory. Even though it's a loose history mag, it's what we call a history mag that looks to the future. So it is writing to do with history. You could be writing a piece on the mobile phone. You could be doing an essay. We publish essays. We publish poetry. We publish short stories. So, and with the short stories, of course, it's great if we could have a sense of history happening in play. And with Other Terrain, that's our more exciting, well, backstory is exciting too, but what we wanted with Other Terrain is to offer a platform that was experimental, where writers could submit works to us that they're pushing the envelope of what so, we want to be able to offer a place for many voices. And so both Backstory and Other Terrain, they provide 2 platforms for those many voices that we want to be able to publish. So what about you, Brendan?
Well, we wanted to publish works by writers with a disability or who are deaf or who had mental illness, but we didn't want necessarily material from those writers about those disabilities. We wanted them to write about other things. So, and that's predominantly what we got in our submissions. So we got short stories, as I said, we got poetry, but it didn't necessarily relate to disability, which is what we wanted, really. We wanted the opportunity for those people to be able to write about things other than that, and to be able to express, you know, their ideas about other things, about politics or about the environment or anything, really.
Yeah.
So that was our mantra, I guess. Yeah.
I think I'm looking for something that excites me, that kind of, that I kind of think this is really good, that there's something really here. And it's not that I necessarily think that, I'm sure there's lots of good pieces that I don't like, but I don't trust, I think as an editor, you have to go, it has to touch you, it has to kind of grab you. And if it's not doing that, it's probably not going to do it for anyone else. And there might be pieces, maybe there are pieces that leave me flat, but I can't guess those. I need to go for ones that kind of really grab me. Otherwise, I want something fresh. I want something that feels, I mean, and this is, contemporary. I mean, I say that. I mean, if it's really good and it doesn't feel contemporary, I want it anyway. But I definitely have a slight bias to something that feels fresh and new, and that feels like sometimes I feel like, when you get writing and it feels as though we've kind of given up, that we hit modernism and then that was the end and we should all really stop now, but we're going to keep going anyway. That's what I don't want. I want kind of something that makes me feel, hey, 2016 and I'm proud and I want to write now. And that doesn't mean write about a mobile phone, just if anyone's wondering. Yeah. But still, I want it, it feels aesthetically fresh. That's what I would like to, I'm most excited to have. But otherwise, it's really quality. I mean, for our craft pieces, it's a little bit differently, and most of those have been ones that I've kind of been out asking people for. But for those, what I'm looking for are really intelligent reflections on the writing process, on literature, but probably from a slightly writer-biased background, or sorry, angle, I mean. So, I mean, if it's kind of literary criticism, it is literary criticism that enables and inspires writers, is that what I'm looking for in my craft pieces. But otherwise, something exciting.
Yes. We're after pieces to inspire other writers as well, to get us writers submitting to us, which seems to be happening, which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think our pieces, we always kind of look for some sort of authenticity in the voice. And I think we've been able to find some incredible writers that have given us pieces from, AIs to, we've got a poem in there that's about sardines. There's an incredible amount of talent out there that we've been able to publish. So that's been
wonderful.
Yeah. What about editors that might want to get involved with literary journals, but perhaps they don't want to start their own just yet? Do we have any advice for how they can get involved?
If they are part of Swinburne University, we'd love to hear from them. At the moment, of course, we're rushing towards the end of the university year, but we will be starting again when uni reassumes, when it starts up again at the end of February. So yeah, we definitely would welcome anybody who'd like to join us in our group and work towards our next issues, which will be to 2017. Amazing.
What about Brendan?
Well, I guess if they wanted to contact us at snapjournal.com.au, they could.
You're good at that.
Yeah, they could send us an email, and we'll consider it. We'll have one of our teleconferences, our weekly teleconferences, and that'll be item number 1. So yeah.
I'd say more generally, I mean, it's, get in contact with the journals you like. They are inundated, that you need to understand. Any of the established journals, they are getting intern applications out the wazoo. And so there's going to be a lot. But just keep sticking your hand up. Come and say hello to people. Go to events, go to launches, have a chat. I mean, this isn't... as we said earlier, you're not going to really make money. So essentially, we're not really in business. And so this is a community. We need to chat, and we think of it like the beginning of punk, when Johnny Rotten's hanging out at a record store. I mean, this is the kind of what we're like. You need to roll up and chat to us, and also because most of us are doing it for no pay, just because we love it. So we also want to like you. So you better be nice and yeah, kind of.
That's right, exactly.
Spend my free time working with people I don't like.
And you open the door for a plug from us too. Yeah. We have our launch of our Publish on Demand version on December the 11th at Swinburne University. There'll be food. I believe there might even be wine. Sorry, Carolyn, if that's wrong information. But so that's 3 o'clock on the 11th. Of December the 11th, and you can meet Eloise and I'll be there as well, and you can have a look at our Publish on Demand versions, and there will be copies there for sale, so you can grab one and see what sort of work we are after. And if you are interested in being an editor and you are a Swinburne student, please come and talk to us, and we'll love to hear from you. We'll talk to you about
Swinburne student. Most universities have something, so you need to kind of look them up, go and do it, and also think about voice works. If you're under 26, I think is the cutoff. 25. 25 is it? Oh,
yes,
harsher
I know.
And harsher, aren't they?
I know.
If you're under 25,
hello,
like me,
call out to Claire, who's one of the wonderful editors of VoiceWorks.
They're fantastic, and they do incredible things to give amazing opportunities. This is a national journal. It's distributed around the country. Yeah, if you are under 25 and you want to be involved in this industry, you should be jumping at it.
You should be out of it.
And
yeah,
can I do a plug for Emerging Writers Festival as well? Because I attended about 3 years ago, and that was my first kind of entry into this whole world. So and I had no idea, the path that it would sort of lead me down. But I think that the festivals are also an amazing way to meet other writers, to meet editors, and to sort of just become a part of the community that Aaron's talking about. So yes, do it.
And that's the thing, is that we are a community of writers, and I think that's wonderful. I love the fact that I'm part of this wonderful tribe, and most writers I have met, the ones that have been really worth meeting are the ones that will, they are helpful, and they give you advice, and they help you in your careers in ways that you don't expect. So, yeah. What was that noise? Sounded like a motorbike.
The only thing I would say is
a drone. I think a drone just passed us.
Young student editors is also to understand that you probably won't walk into a straight editorial role to start with. At least in a lot of journals, it's going to take time. We need to just really know that we can trust you to do it well, and that isn't about you. It's just that, most of us have had considerable experience. We've put a lot of years in, and this is our baby. I mean, we're not handing it off too quickly. So just as long as you understand it, you're going to have to put in some of the hard yards. You're going to have to, do some of the less exciting stuff in most cases before you get to edit. And the other thing is, you can speed that up though by starting your own literary journal. And then, hey, you're the boss. You choose.
And best of luck to you.
Exactly. Good luck.
Well, that's probably as good a note as any to wrap up on. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to add before we sign off?
Well, thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you to the Digital Writers Festival for having us and for listening to us. And for our Twitter, I'll just double check. There's no other Twitter questions. No, all right. But thank you for our Twitter user who sent us the question. That was great. Andy, Brendan, Aaron.
And thank you, Eloise.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well
Great
done.
hosting.
Great.
Yep.
All right.
Very interesting. Very good.
All right. We can log off or...